Namaskaram to all, and we will start our session. Chadurmukha Samarambham Vagbhadacharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryandam Vande Guru Paramparam Ragadirogan Sadadanushaktan Sheshagaya Prasradan Sheshan Nausukya Moharadidan Jakhana Yopurva Vaidyaya Namostu Tasmai. So, mm, we were discussing about dosha Shayam and Rupahani, that is the word where we stopped our last session. Rupahani. How does it happen? That was the question which we asked while we concluded the previous session. See, one interesting thing is that while I am trying to explain the Samprapti or whatever it is, what we were trying to explain, the clinical methodology, it is becoming more and more evident that we have to go more and more deep. Then only the original ideas can be conveyed to a group of practitioners. These things may be very easy while we are talking to a group of beginners, some sort of an elementary level. But when we are seriously discussing these matters with a group of clinicians or senior students who are into the clinical training, it is very interesting to note that the things are becoming more and more sophisticated. So, with this preface, I think I should start explaining things further. See, all the components of Sharira are basically Panchabhautika. I might have mentioned this thing some maybe 100 times earlier. Still, I am coming to that point once again. See, all the components of Sharira are basically Panchabhautika. And Ahara works as the primary source of Panchabhutas for the Sharira to sustain. So I am using the word primary source deliberately because at this point of time, I am not very sure whether Sharira assimilates bhutas through the Panchendriyas directly or otherwise. I'm not very sure about it. It may be happening. So that is why I am, then that will be a secondary source of nourishing the Panchabhutas. Or if we delve deeper, we may get convinced that That is the primary source. I do not know. As of now, I'm not very sure. So I consider ahara as the primary source. And Agni is the principle responsible for this. Again, we might have made this statement many times earlier also. Agni is the principle responsible for this. And we have seen different types of Agnis like Jadharagni, Bhudagni, Dhatwagni, isn't it? All these things we are familiar with at least. In Anga Vibhagam Shariram, we find Bhaumapyagneyavyavyaha Panjoshmana Sanabhasaha Panjahara Gunan Swan Swan Parthivadin Pajandyanu. It will be nice to recollect that sloka now. Shtangahridayam Shariram, 3rd chapter. Bhaumapyagneyavyavyaha Panjoshmana Sanabhasaha. Sanabhasaha Panjahara Gunan Swan Swan Parthivadin Pajandyanu. This statement is about Bhudagni. Bhaumapyagneyavayavyaha Sanabhasaha Bhaumapyagneyavayavyaha. When we look into the core concepts, we can understand that these different Agnis named as Jadharagni, Dhatwagni, Bhudagni, etc. are all representatives of a single principle manifesting in different situations, different places, and thus getting labeled with the different names. Primarily, it is the Jadharagni. And this primary principle called Jadharagni is the one or one of the responsible factors for the nourishment of Sharira. I am saying that it is one of the responsible factors. All the 5 bhutas are nourished in the body. All the 5 bhutas from Akasha to Prithvi or Prithvi to Akasha are all nourished in the body, and as a part, subsequently, all the dhatus are also nourished. All the dhatus are also nourished. When the Agni is proper or optimally strong, a properly prepared and properly consumed ahara is broken down, segregated, and rebuilt into dhatus. I hope I am clear. When the Agni is proper and a properly prepared and properly consumed ahara is there, this ahara is broken down, segregated, and reassembled to form the dhatus. If the ahara is not guna sampanna, this need not happen. When the Agni is durbala, this need not happen. When the Srotas is not properly functioning, the nourishment need not happen. These 3 points are very, very important aspects of nourishment of dhatus. Number 1, ahara should be guna sampanna, Agni should be deepta, and Srotasas properly working. Then only the nourishment is happening. As we discussed in our earlier sessions, doshas are technical entities. They are technical entities which represent or reflect or disclose or reveal the way in which the bhutas are organized into innumerable sharira angas and upangas and pratyangas, large as well as small, or gross as well as subtle, and still fitting well into a threefold classification of events happening, that is to accumulate, to transform, and to distribute. I think that statement became a little bit complex. I will repeat it. What I told is, doshas are technical entities which represent the way in which bhutas are organized into sharira with innumerable number of angas and upangas and pratyangas. And still how they synchronize and fit well into a threefold classification of events happening in the sharira to deliver 3 basic activities, that means to accumulate, to transform, and to distribute. Hope that idea is clear. We have discussed it earlier also. The most important point here is that the nourishment from ahara is, please listen, the most important point what I am trying to convey at this point is, the nourishment from ahara is primarily in the bhuta level, and this reflects in the dhadus. That nourishment is passed on to the level of dhadus when the Agni and Srotasas are functionally intact. So the primary nourishment happens in the level of bhutas, which is transferred to the dhadu level when the corresponding agnis and srotasas are functionally intact. Look into Charaka Samhita or Ashtanga Sangraham Sutra Sthanam Doshadi Vijnaniyam. where we find Dhatavaha Ghalu Shariraha Samanaihi Samanaguna Bhuishtaihi Va Ahara Viharaihi Abhyasyamanihi Vruddhim Apnuvandi. Dhatavaha Ghalu Shariraha Samanaihi Samanaguna Bhuishtaihi Va Ahara Viharaihi Abhyasyamanihi Vruddhimapnuvandi means the dhadus of a sharira attains vruddhi, a gain or an increase, when ahara and vihara of similar gunas or of predominantly similar gunas are consumed on a regular basis, continuously. Abhyasyamanihi. Abhyasyamanihi reflects the requirement or the necessity of consumption on a regular basis. So, samanaihi samana guna bhuishtaihi va ahara viharaihi abhyasyamanihi. This samanata or samana guna bhuishtata, this samanata or samana guna bhuishtata originally happens at the level of bhutas. That is what I was saying earlier, that the most important point in the nourishment of Sharira is that primarily it happens in the level of bhutas. Primarily happens in the level of bhutas. Now, all dhadus are made up of bhutas. All dhadus are made up of bhutas. So obviously we feel it as a quite straightforward equation that dhadavaha ghalu shariraha samanaihi samanaguna bhuishtaihi va ahara viharaihi abhyasyamanihi vruddhimapnuvandi. But even though all the dhadus are made up of bhutas, you cannot say that dhadus are bhutas. Why? Why there is a problem if we say like that? I will explain. See, pot is made up of clay. But a pot is a pot. It is not clay. A pot is a pot. It is not clay. Because when a pot is made from clay, it has a set of karmas to deliver which is different from that of clay, like storing water, cooking food, and so on. So it is true that pot is made up of clay, but pot is a pot. Seeing a pot, using a pot, you cannot say that I am using clay. This is clay. No, this is pot. In the same logic applied, all the dhadus are made out of bhutas, but a dhadu is a dhadu. But a dhadu is a dhatu. Bhutas engage in specific, or particular or unique collaborations between themselves to combine and work together to form the dhadus. Bhudas engage in very unique combinations to form dhadus. And this happens by the active involvement of the agencies of Agni, which we call as Dhatu Agnis. Which we call as Dhatu Agnis. By this Dhadu formation from Bhudas, many interesting things are happening. Many interesting things are happening. As I have repeatedly mentioned earlier, these are all happening in the presence of life and only in the presence of life. Only in a living body. This is very important. You may feel like a very childish statement, but this is very important. Why? We will see. The function of each dhadu is to contribute to a system called Sharira, to keep it in perfect health, to sustain life, and to ensure the capacity of the being to procreate biologically. That is the sole responsibility of the dhatu. Everything else are decorations added on later. Purely in a biological sense, no any other additions, deletions, ornaments, decorations. Purely as a biological system, the function of each dhadu is to contribute to the system of Sharira, to keep it in perfect health, to sustain life, and to make sure that the being is capable of procreating. See, each Bhuda has its own set of properties. I am repeating because when I use the word Bhuta and Dhadu again and again, if you are not into the words keenly, you may miss. So I am repeating. I was mentioning about the dhadu initially, that every dhadu is contributing to the system of the Sharira. Now here I am mentioning each Bhuda has its own set of properties. And each dhadu has all the 5 Bhudas in different combinations. Each dhadu has all the 5 Bhudas in different combinations. I think I should repeat it once again. Each Bhuda has its own set of properties, and each dhadu has all the 5 Bhudas in different combinations.
He's having a
Now listen. Having said this, the sum of the properties of the bhutas. I repeat, the sum of the properties of the bhutas and the sum of the properties of the dhadus will have no comparison. All the dhadus are made out of bhutas. Each dhadu will have its unique combination of all the 5 bhutas. These are all true statements, but the sum of the properties of all the bhutas and the sum of the properties of all the dhadus will have no comparison. The sum of the properties of all the dhadus will be much sophisticated than just the sum of the properties of all the bhutas. Similarly, if you take one single dhadu alone, then also the sum of the properties of all the bhutas and the sum of the properties of that particular dhadu will have no comparison. Similarly, activities or properties, that is karma and guna, of a living sharira as a whole is not the sum of all the activities of its dhadus. Please listen, I am repeating the last statement. The activities of a living sharira is not the sum of the activities of the dhadus together. Please mind this very seriously. This is where the Tridosha Siddhanta gaining significance. This is where the Tridosha Siddhanta gains its significance. What is that significance? Tridoshas can accommodate all the properties, gunas as well as karmas of a living sharira as a whole. Unlike the dhadus, summing up of the dhadus, or bhudas, summing up of the bhudas, unlike them, Tridoshas can accommodate all the properties of a living sharira as a whole. Number 1. Number 2, Tridoshas can accommodate all the properties of the dhadus. That means sharira understood in parts. So Tridoshas can accommodate the sharira as a whole. Tridoshas can accommodate sharira in its parts. That is why Tridosha Siddhanta is becoming the cornerstone of our understanding of Sharira. Ayurveda understands everything. I repeat, everything in a living body as dhatu or mala, explores their bhautika constitution and then superimposes them with the 3 doshas. Ayurveda understands everything in a living body as dhatu or mala, explores their bhuta constitutions, and then superimposes them with the three doshas. Technically speaking, the doshas may be hypothetical entities, but they accommodate the entire activities of a living sharira, all inclusively in terms of structure and function. That means guna and karma. Tridoshas accommodate the entire activities of a living sharira, all inclusively in terms of structure and function. This understanding is quite essential if we have to understand what is a dosha kopa, what is a dosha kshaya, what is a dosha dushti, what is a samprapti. Again, there are very important ideas. Only if understand this, we can understand why the ashraya-ashrayi relation of dhatus and doshas are explained. Why that relations are explained. So these are very, very important. This is what I wanted to highlight in this session. Is there any significance in mentioning sanabhasaha separately? Panjoshmanaha sanabhasaha. Could be. But that happens even otherwise. That sort of explanations are happening even otherwise. But there could be, the author might have an idea to highlight. Like, see, even the akasha is not mere absence, but it is something which is generated. So he might have intended to highlight that idea that akasham is not just about the absence, but even akasha component of the sharira is nourished by, deliberately nourished by the activity of Agni. So that could be the reason why it is highlighted separately. Then, is Buddha's dissociate and associate? I think the second one is, what is that second word used, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi? A particular form is also done by Agni in each Buddha. Is that called Buddha Agni Paga? That question I could not make out. If Dr. Vijay Lakshmi can unmute herself and read out the question, I can answer. Then there is one more point. Can you associate? Okay. Is Buddha's dissociate and associate a particular form is also done by Agni in each Buddhas? Is that called Buddha Agni? See, Bhudagni Pagam, as it is conceived in our fundamentals, is about, even the other day when I was giving another session in a different platform, the same question came. And the example I used to explain it was so simple. See, I construct a building which is fully some sort of a structure which can be dismantled and reused. And I completed the construction, and after 1 year or 2 years, I thought that, okay, this is not the proper one for the current usage. I am going to dismantle this and make another one using the same materials. Then, first of all, I dismantle it. Then, I segregate the materials which are used to build the wall, then the doors and the windows, then the materials which are used to make the ceiling, then the roof. All such things are segregated. Then, using the same materials, I am making another construction, another structure with the same materials, but with a different shape, different purpose. In the same way, the breaking down, breaking down of ahara is done by Jadharagni. Now, this is to be segregated into the fundamental units, which can be used for the next construction. So, as far as ahara is concerned, the fundamental units are the 5 bhutas. So, within that pool of sara generated by Jadharagni, some sort of a segregation is happening wherein the 5, that is what we saw, that Panjahara, Gunan, Swan, Parthivadin, Pajandyanu, they are separated, but still in the common pool, so that the next agency can come and work on them to make the new construction, that is the dhadus. So that segregation is the activity which is facilitated by Bhudagni, and that is known as Bhudagni Paka. Next is, can you give an example why all gunas of Panchabhutas and that of Dhadus is not same? Yeah. That is very easy actually. Because, see, Panchabhutas are or need not be animate things. See, in Shukradhadu, say for example, Garbhodpadascha, you cannot expect such a property directly attributed to any of the Panchabhutas. But Shukradhadu, which is definitely made out of Panchabhutas, has got that peculiar karma. With every dhadus, you can find this. Tushti prenana rakta pushti bhistu rasaha. You take any dhatu, there will be some activities which cannot be directly attributed to a bhuta. This is because bhutas need not be animate all the time. They are jada vastus. Whereas dhadus are always considered or referred in a living body. So the principle of life gives a different dimension to the dhadus. That is the reason. There may be many examples. How Shabda nourish Akasha by Bhautika Ahara and other bhutas. Yeah, these questions are very interesting. That is why I told, see, when we are trying to explain what dosha kshaya is, or what dosha vruddhi is, or dosha dushti is, to explain these things to an elementary class people, students, is very easy. But when you are trying to get into the deeper understanding of these concepts, see, these sort of questions are always popping up. how Shabda nourish Akasha by Bhautika Ahara. I do not know the real intention or the clarity of the question. See, what I was trying to say is, even the Akashiya or Nabhasa principles in the Sharira are not mere absence of something. They are not about emptiness, but those emptiness which we perceive is even continuously promoted, sustained, nourished by certain components of the ahara, the nabhasamsha of the ahara, and processed by the agni, which is related to the pajana of that nabhasabhavas from the ahara. I hope the idea is clear. Then, yeah, the rest of the things are not any serious points. So, please, I am pretty sure that just by a casual listening, everything will be going over the head. Nothing is going to into the head. But please think over it. Contemplate on these concepts. Then only we can understand. See, in a random talk or in a conventional clinics, we casually say that this is Vadakopa or this is Pittakopa or this is Kabhakshaya. And all the literature is using such a terminology very liberally. Say, for example, Sarpir Dadyad, Kabhe Mande, Vada Pittottare Jware. Sarpir Dadyad, Kabhe Mande, Vada Pittottare Jware. It is a statement, very frank statement, very clear statement. But what are you looking for in the Vyadhida Sharira? Kabhe Mande Vada Pittottare Jware. What is happening there? What are you trying to explain? These questions are to be understood, to be discussed. Then only we can get into the crux of the story. One more question, I think. Can you explain with an example the Nabhasabhava in an ahara? See, in Dravyadhi Vijnaniyam, you will find all these categories of dravyas. What is about a Parthiva Dravya? Many times, they are even perceived by the karma, anumana. Karma bhistvanumiyande. So when there is tatra dravyam guru sthula sthira gandha gunotmanam parthivam gauravasthairya sanghadopachayavaham. In the same way, you will find the end to the nabhasa dravya. So every bhuta can be perceived. Then in the sharira, what are the contributions? That also I think we have seen. Tatra ghad ghani dehesmin shrotram shabdo viviktata. So, tatra ghad ghani dehesmin shrotram shabdo viviktata. All these things are contributions of Akasha. So, when there is Akasha components assimilated from the Ahara, they are supposed to maintain these bhavas in the Sharira. For every Ahara, we can think in the similar manner. Whether this is a Parthiva Dravya or an Apya Dravya each and every dravya cannot be experimented on a day-to-day basis. That is where we have to use the nikhandus or nikhandu parts of the samhidas, which we otherwise call as agama, where this agamam explains what are the functions that the consumption of these particular dravya is going to create in the sharira. So we find parthivam gauravasthairya sanghadopachayavaham. So in the nikhandu part, when we find one dravya which is sanghada upachayavaham, taking that agama for granted, we assume that that particular dravya is parthiva in nature, prithvi predominant in nature. Similarly, there may be many things. An ahara which is kadu predominant, that may be promoting more agneya bhavas and nabhasa bhavas in the sharira. While explaining the rasas, we find this, the general functions and the defects of excessive use of a rasa. We can find valid clues how these rasa predominant dravyas are going to influence the bhuda that structure of sharira. So there are many situations where these ideas are explained, sometimes very frankly, sometimes in disguise. So please think about these ideas. Please contemplate on them, meditate on them repeatedly, and start seeing things in a different light. So here I stop. Thank you very much. Bhishajam sadhuvrittanam bhadramagamashalinam abhyasta karmanam bhadram bhadrabhirashinam. Namaskaram.